indicate on his black motorcycle, he said, we clocked him at an exorbitant rate of speed. I've conferred with the Chief Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court, the Attorney General of the state, and the Superintendent of the State Police. And they all agree with me, there is no speed limit on a road that isn't open yet. It was not an easy slog, but we made it.
Former Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels, a key player in pumping life into I-69. He rode to Evansville with breakneck speed to christen the first leg. Daniels, one of 3 Indiana governors, 16 years of hard labor, and thousands of Hoosier workers with the role in building more than 140 miles of highway, which has finally hit the finish line. The impact of the completion of I-69 from Evansville to Indy, now on Inside Indiana Business.
From Indiana's business news leader, this is IBJ Media's Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick, presented by Elevate Ventures, Indiana University, and Liuna.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. It was a day more than 50 years in the making, and one that many thought might never happen.
3, 2, 1.
Indeed, this week's opening of the final stretch of I-69 between Evansville and Indianapolis had a finish line theme, with Governor Eric Holcomb arriving in a vintage Indy 500 pace car. But it is also viewed as a green flag for jobs and economic development along an interstate that now stretches corner to corner in Indiana, connecting the state to Canada and ultimately the Gulf of Mexico. 12 years after then Governor Mitch Daniels piloted his Harley to christen the first 3 sections of the Evansville to Indy route, the 6th and final section, a 26-mile stretch from Martinsville to Indy, is now complete. And with it, the potential for more than $4 billion in economic impact over 20 years.
I've been waiting for this day for 16 years. I was with then former Governor Mitch Daniels in July of 2008 in Evansville, Indiana, when we set sail after decades of talk. And today we mark a major, not just a major move, but a major milestone in terms of Indiana's place as the crossroads of America. Today is proof positive that we mean business and we're open for it.
The completion of I-69 in Indiana is viewed as a crowning achievement of an ambitious infrastructure investment program championed by the Mitch Daniels administration, touching virtually every corner of the state and solidifying Indiana's reputation as the crossroads of America.
US 31, Fort to Port Road at Fort Wayne, the new bridges over the Ohio, Hoosier Heartland Corridor, and many more. But this is the granddaddy of them all. It's just a joy to see it finally come to completion. You go look at what has happened around the bridges in near New Albany and Jeffersonville, boom area. Go look at Fort Wayne in northeast Indiana, where we finally got the road to the Port of Toledo built. Boom area. And this sort of thing is going to happen in southwest Indiana next.
For some cities and towns along I-69, it is impact that is already being felt.
The opening of the I-69 from Evansville to Indianapolis has created untold economic wins for businesses in the Evansville region. Whether it gives businesses a greater opportunity to transport goods and services, their final product or raw material, it just makes them more efficient.
Not only will I-69 spur new housing, schools, retail, and industry, it could also create growth in Indiana's tech space as well, in the form of a new tech corridor with a big military tie.
Crane Naval Facility is an island of technological innovation, and that's going to help connect the Crane Naval Facility up through Bloomington, up to Indianapolis, and we're going to have another technology corridor, just like we're seeing develop from along I-65, from Marion County to Boone County, all the way up to Tippecanoe County with Purdue University.
Much more on the impact of I-69 hitting the finish line a bit later in the show. Coming up next, high-tech health technology with a Hoosier connection. How a container the size of a dishwasher is transforming the way vaccines are shipped.
Arctic RX uses a unique internal thermal technology to keep minus 80 degrees Celsius for 28 days with no battery and no electricity.
Made in Indiana technology, opening a whole new world for how vaccines are shipped around the globe. Well, the company behind this technology, Arctic RX, is based out of Indiana, the IoT lab in Fishers. It's a startup we've been following. Kylie's been following now for nearly 5 years, celebrating a market launch of its Indiana-made freezer pod. Kylie, give us the update. It's a great story.
It is. It's always fun to follow these companies as they reach these big milestones. The founders of Fishers-based Arctic RX says it's their coolest announcement yet. The shippable, reusable freezer pod is on the market and ready for production. The Arctic RX pod is about the size of a dishwasher and can keep its contents, think thousands of vaccines, drugs, or research material, at ultra low temperature for 3 to 4 weeks to ship around the world. And here's the kicker: no batteries and no electricity. Its creators say the technology inside the pod shell is the secret sauce that keeps its contents cold. Developed at the Indiana IoT Lab in Fishers, the pod is now being field tested by clients, including the Department of Defense. And while the company can't share details, Arctic RX President Shane Bivens says other field tests involve moving things like cancer research cells for contract research organizations.
So now we can scale up production, whether it's here directly in Indiana, or scale up that production to begin producing in other countries. So the tooling achievement has been passed, as well as now we have started the actual production runs. So if someone needs 1,000 of them, we can actually do that now.
The pod's roots involve a collaboration with thermal engineers at Rolls-Royce who have the know-how to cool fire-hot jet engines. And an update on another startup we've been following, South Bend-based Sleep Easy Technology getting a $500,000 dose of funding from an undisclosed source. The startup is commercializing a sleep aid device that attaches to a pillow to create an oxygen-rich cloud near the person's face. It's designed to be an alternative for people who don't want to sleep with nose tubes or supplemental oxygen. The startup CEO moved from Utah to commercialize the device at Notre Dame's Idea Center.
Anyone can come 24/7, just open the box and take what they need.
And another honor for a mom making waves in the opioid epidemic. We first told you about the founder of Indiana nonprofit Overdose Lifeline in the spring when USA Today named her Woman of the Year for Indiana. Now, more recognition for Justin Phillips, making the Forbes 50 over 50 list, women winning life's second half. After her son Aaron died from an overdose, she created the nonprofit to help other families facing substance use disorder. Phillips became a champion in Indiana for passing Aaron's Law in 2015, which allows any person to get overdose reversal kits.
Nice recognition
That's right.
for a great entrepreneur, great story. Back to Arctic RX.
Yes.
Again, fascinating story. These freezers, I guess
Right.
you
Pods.
call them,
They like to call them pods.
Okay, they're good for all modes of transportation?
Yes, they've been designed, Shane says, for everything from camelback to canoe. He says, interesting, in the cold chain, a dozen groups typically will touch a box before it arrives at its destination. So they've designed it to be compatible with everything, whether that's a pickup truck, a ship, a high-speed jet plane. It can do it all.
A lot of momentum there. What's next? Staying local? They're going to go to franchise this thing out? What are they going to do?
I asked them that, and he said they're going to do whatever they can to, whether that's keeping it local, to make this a big thing across the world. Maybe that's keeping their current business model. Maybe it's partnering with someone who can make it even bigger. All things are on the table. They're entertaining all ideas. And one thing they're really excited about is the global reach of this. And they said that their biggest conversations right now are happening in Australia and Germany.
Yeah, great story. Great updates on those others too. Thanks, Kylie. Well, she was one of the biggest media personalities in Indianapolis back in the 1990s.
Good morning, it's 7:26 and 32 degrees. I'm Pat Carlini. Pat
Carlini started on the TV side as a weather forecaster and anchor at WTHR. She became so popular she landed a spot on the radio juggernaut Bob and Tom show. Pat shared insights on what that experience was like.
Tom didn't want to discuss anything before you go on the air. Nobody talked off the air in a funny, and you got on the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when all the goofy stuff happened because we couldn't get things straight off the air. But he didn't want it to be an organized type of thing. It's just funnier to just do it all on the air. So after a while, I would just walk in And I thought, well, whatever happens, happens. And that's kind of how they wanted it.
Catching up with Pat Carlini, how she's transitioned from the fast-paced life in media to a much more mellow space in the world of yoga. My guest on the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. Still ahead, a big shot in the arm for semiconductor manufacturing in Indiana. And fueling growth in downtown Marion. What a new plan for riverfront development looks like and how it could impact Grant County.
It's fun for us. It gets people excited not only about the Fever but about the Pacers too, and it's something that'll last for quite some time. So, I mean, I went and played at the park all the time growing up. I had a park right up the street that had a full court like this. So, for me, it's super cool to be a part of these opportunities.
One of the WNBA's queens of the court, helping to dedicate a new permanent basketball court at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Caitlin Clark and her Fever teammates hooping it up with some lucky youngsters. That new court made possible through a partnership between the fair and Indiana Pacers Sports and Entertainment.
Here's what's making news around Indiana. Brought to you by the Indiana Association of Realtors. Indiana's 21,000 realtors. The neighbors you know, the experts you can count on.
Well, Indiana's push to become a major semiconductor hub getting a big boost this week. SK Hynix and its plans at the Purdue Research Park getting up to $450 million in federal money from the CHIPS Act to build a semiconductor packaging facility there. The SK Hynix plant, one of the largest economic development deals in Indiana history. The nearly $4 billion project set to open in 2028. Southeast Indiana under consideration for a massive expansion project. Metal components manufacturer Volstapon looking at Jeffersonville to invest $78 million to grow operations and create about 100 jobs. The company currently operates a facility at the port in Jeffersonville. It is expected to make a decision on expansion later in August. Meantime, in Marion, plans for a major downtown development project are moving forward. River Rock Lofts will bring apartments, commercial space, and a plaza along the Riverwalk there. The city's mayor tells us there hasn't been any new development of this magnitude in more than a decade in the city. The goal is to create a space that people are proud to live in.
It's going to inspire so many more developments and so many more people who are already here that own existing buildings to do more. I mean, just from the announcement going out last week, there's been so many people have reached out that are looking to either revamp what is already here and existing or develop other spaces we have in our downtown.
Marion looking to cities like Fort Wayne and Evansville that have seen success with riverfront development that is continuing in both cities. We're told groundbreaking could happen this fall. Well, there are plans to build a new $180 million housing development in South Bend. The North Edge project will be located on the northwest edge of the Notre Dame campus, but they likely won't be geared towards students. The project includes multifamily units, townhomes, and senior living apartments. Professional golf returning to southern Indiana, but this time with a new home. The Pete Dye course, the golf course there at French Lick, will host the Corn Ferry Tour Championship presented by United Leasing and Finance October 3rd through the 6th. For the last 12 years, the event has been held at Victoria National Golf Club near Evansville. But organizers expect the move to French Lick to attract more of a statewide fan base and boost the economic impact, including funding for early childhood education efforts in Southwest Indiana.
Kids that are at risk that we're working on and trying to get them an opportunity to have a good start is as much as what golf gives back as anything. So we could not be more pleased. We're raising a good amount of money for them, and I think it's been very successful, and it's going to grow from here.
Well, without a doubt, we hope to draw people from all over central Indiana, southwest Indiana, Kentucky to the tournament this year, which is going to be fantastic. But the golf coverage really allows us to open to a worldwide audience to really showcase how special Indiana really is, and hopefully, drive some more tourism at the French Lick Resort.
The championship will be televised in more than 180 countries on the Golf Channel. A previous study from the University of Southern Indiana pegged the economic impact of the event at more than $6 million.
Time now for our Eye on Education, brought to you by PNC Bank.
Well, we begin this week with a huge investment going to 13 Indiana colleges and universities around the state. Lilly Endowment sending $300 million in grants to improve quality of life projects in college communities. DePaul University in Greencastle lending the biggest chunk, $32 million, with the majority of that going to support building a mixed-use development that includes a public square for community events. Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, Hanover College, and the University of Notre Dame, each also securing $30 million from that Lilly Endowment grant. Anderson University President John Pistol has announced his retirement effective at the end of the current academic year. He joined the university in 2015, and in that time, the span of his leadership, undergraduate majors were added, 17 in all. Anderson's incoming freshman class is 15% higher than last year's. The Board of Trustees has started a search for Pistol's successor. Purdue University on track with its 10-year capital budget plan. The Board of Trustees approving two major funding requests on Purdue's West Lafayette and Northwest campuses. $160 million set aside to build a shared facility for life sciences research in West Lafayette, and $23 million to renovate the Hammond Student Union Library building at Purdue Northwest. And IU East with a unique strategy to get high school seniors and graduates interested in business by putting them in one-on-one settings with local companies. The BOSS program has been around for nearly 20 years, the brainchild of IU economics professor Tim Scales.
And the BOSS program is a way to get the high school students and sometimes transitioning into the university to truly understand what entrepreneurship is all about, how it works, and how to bring their ideas, create their ideas, and bring it to the market. I get them out of the classroom a lot of times. I get them in touch with the entrepreneurs that have already been out there. So they get to see those successful entrepreneurs. They get to see how excited they are, how passionate they are, and then they want to be a part of it as well.
Tim, a true champion of entrepreneurship at IU East. Meantime, Hagerstown high school graduate Maggie Rutherford, she's one of those students. She learned a lot about food industry giant Dot Foods, which operates huge warehouse in Wayne County.
So since it is a family business and such a huge company around the United States, just seeing the family aspect of it was really humbling to see instead of just Dot Foods. I knew the background behind it. Businesses and companies in Wayne County that I would just see just driving by, but I never really knew what they were about until the BOSS program, and then we got into it and we learned a lot.
This year's 2024 Wayne County 4-H Fair Queen is contestant number 1, Maggie Rutherford.
And by the way, Maggie recently named Wayne County's 4-H Queen. She plans on becoming an elementary education teacher. When we come back, rolling down America's newest interstate, opening this week in Indiana, a tribute to the men and women who built it and the economic boost it could give to Indiana communities between Evansville and Indy. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick, coming to you this week literally from the middle of I-69 in southwest Indiana. We are near the... Well, we've been following the I-69 construction story since it really started. In fact, we broadcast our entire show from the interstate, the actual interstate, before Section 1 opened from Evansville to Oakland City. That was back in 2012. 14 years later, and here we are, more than 140 miles of new highway and growth opportunities, not only for Indy and Evansville, but for cities and towns in between.
And I agree with the governor. This is more than just a highway, it's a monument.
Former Indiana Governor Mike Pence on the impact of I-69. It's a project that has already spurred a housing boom in communities like Martinsville.
We're seeing housing starting here, selling the houses before they even get them built. So we realize that, our location is going to be very beneficial to us to attract growth over the next few years.
Evansville, the first leg of I-69 to open 14 years ago. When then Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels drove his motorcycle from the Circle City to the Pocket City to mark the occasion. Southwest Indiana already reaping the economic windfall.
The smaller communities will really benefit from this. Many of the smaller communities have built entire economic development plans based on the opening of I-69. So think about the opportunities that they will enjoy because of a new interstate highway.
What drives income growth in Indiana is when we get people from out of state to spend money. That means buying goods and products made by Indiana companies, but it also means people traveling through. And the interstate from Evansville all the way up to Indianapolis, that is undeveloped territory for retail and restaurants, in addition to the type of industrial and corporate investment that we want to see.
I-69 would never have happened without 16 years worth of brains, brawn, talent, and dedication from thousands of Indiana construction workers who made the project happen.
Men and women who did the hard work in the sun, digging, pouring, painting, oftentimes working around the clock. It's truly extraordinary. It was the hard-working men and women of INDOT and all of the companies so well represented here who made this highway, and you've made Indiana better for it. It's often said great things are worth waiting for. I-69 is a prime example of this truth. It required patience, determination, vision, and unwavering commitment.
So certainly a big week for I-69 and for Indiana. Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of Inside Indiana Business. We leave you this week with Colts Camp action at Grand Park in Westfield. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.